Hello and welcome to this episode of the AI AEC Show by AEC Business. My name is Arni Heiskanen and my guest is Carl Veillette, Chief Product Officer at Newforma, a company known for its deep expertise in project information management in the AECO sector. We'll talk about AI, BIM, and risk management and the future of connected construction data. Carl, great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, let's start with your personal journey. Uh, you began as an architect and ended up co-founding BIM Track. What drew you into software, and how did that lead to Newforma?
That's a very good question. I think I started my career working for a large steel contractor, and that's where I got exposed to BIM in the first place, right? And after a few years, I've decided to switch to the dark side and starting to build our own software. So at the time, we were working as a consultant for the Quebec City Airport project extension, and then on the project, we saw a real need for uh, issue tracking and a better coordination process around projects delivered in BIM. So we started basically building a platform in this project with the help of some firms working in there. So we had Stantec involved. We had an architecture firm based here in Quebec. And then another general contractor, Pomerleau, which is one of the largest local general contractor here. And then we basically built what later became BIM Track. So in 2016, we released this product to the market, and then instantly we got customers around the globe in France, the UK. We started to scale the product and help people really overcome the challenges of BIM coordination on projects. So throughout the years, we scaled the platform. We had investors like WSP Global, and then that led us to the successful acquisition by Newforma. So I think the reason why we ended up merging with Newforma is because we share the same passion and the same vision for project information management. So BIM Track was taking care of like issue tracking and the BIM coordination space, while Newforma was delivering project information management solutions for 20 years, right? So touching various activities of the project from pure information management, right? Just the challenge of records keeping when you're leveraging Microsoft products, and communications and decisions are made in Outlook and Microsoft Teams now, right? So the challenge of making sure that this is part of the project records for when litigation kicks in, right? But also taking care of like construction administration. You would think of like managing RFIs, submittals, field reports, and such, right? So when we looked at the approach we were both taking in the industry, we're not trying to replace a tool that exists, but we're streamlining workflows and orchestrating those activities of the project by connecting the various platforms together. So, for instance, an example, Ufoma would basically like tie Bluebeam in the context of RFIs reviews. When a general contractor is using Procore, sending an RFI to a designer have to review and forward. Typically, this is done by email. Now we're orchestrating that workflow. And then in the context of the review, they often have to mark up PDFs. So they use Bluebeam because this is best in class. So then what we do is we orchestrate all those things. So, and by doing so, we're also creating audit trails, and we're ensuring a full record keeping of all the information that flows through that process. So some refer to it as the golden thread of information. So that's basically what we do.
Okay. One thing I would like to ask you about your previous company. You said that you got pretty fast, you got international customers. How did you manage to do that?
So I think it is very interesting because if I just roll back, I mean, I guess I was born in the cloud somehow, right? When we released BIM Track, it was a cloud first SaaS offering. So I think that really helped us scale it across the globe. I think there was a real pain at the time when we released the product because coordination reports and BIM teams were basically like sent by paper or PDF, right, by email, and there was really no accountability on solving clashes or issues found in the model, right? So that was very hard to track. And then week over week, when there's a new versions of models, VDC team go over that and try to see what has been resolved, what is still pending. It's a fast-paced environment, right? It's pre-construction often when those things start to take shape. So we really saw a need to streamline that workflow, and that is another aspect of the scaling across the world, because the easiest it is to deploy a solution, the most widespread it's going to become, right? And we've seen with some of our largest customers who have deployed it across like thousands of users. So the SaaS model is definitely web-based access, no installation required, removing some roadblocks for IT, but also at the same time solving a real problem also really helps.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah. So what would you say is unique about how you approach project information management?
Yeah. So I think it's really hard to change human behavior. And when people are using a piece of software to deliver something on the project, right? Whatever it is, writing specifications or using your favorite BIM tool for clash detection, right? Or whether it is sending an email to insert an RFI, which seems pretty simple, right? It is really hard to change their behaviors. So we took in context first kind of approach with add-ins inside the context of the day-to-day software people use. And instead of trying to replace those and convincing someone to move away from Word for writing specification, or convincing someone not to use email for RFIs answers, or trying to move someone away from their clash detection software, we said we're going to integrate with those tools and we're going to create a workflow around it so that the information flows to our system more efficiently than through various uncontrolled and um, ad hoc communication method, right? So we're really like creating that net on the project tech stack instead of trying to replace the tool, and I think that's a key to what we do differently.
Mm. Well, let's talk about AI. So, and you mentioned a compelling use case around email filing. Can you walk us through how AI is making a difference in this workflow?
Yeah. So let me just take a step back, right? So for people who haven't heard about email filing, well, emails are the oldest thing in the world, right? So when you thought email would go away and people would start, communicating in BIM and not use emails anymore, they were wrong. The statistics shows it. The number of emails have been increasing year over year. And that's as a result of more regulations on projects, more complex projects, and now the problem with those communications going from people to people in the project and decisions being made by email is that often they're not recorded. And as I like to say, the last phase of construction project is litigation, right? So how do you make sure that you don't create risk for your organization when you're exchanging information by email like that, right? So when you go in court at the end of the project and there's a need discovery process, 75% of evidences are emails. So if this is not captured in your project records, you're creating risk for your organization. And then we saw a huge shift also in 2021 when we were in the middle of COVID, right? People moved away from email partially, right? Like we saw a shift in new communication method like Microsoft Teams. Now people jump on calls and then they keep talking in a chat after and they make decisions. They send drawings in there. Those drawings are often not controlled, right? So we saw a case with a customer in Canada, an engineering firm that sent information to a general contractor. General contractor sued them, saying they've never received the information. They were able to pull back a Microsoft Teams conversation with a thumbs up. Okay, so again, that's a change, right? And then show that the information was sent to the general contractor, and they managed to avoid a claim. So again, that's the importance of communications in construction, and we see that the problem with those records keeping is it often depends on discipline from people in your organization, project delivery team, right? So if one day they wake up and they don't feel like filing those emails in the project, or capturing the records in Microsoft Teams and into the project context, then they're not going to do it. And as a result, only 50% of emails and communications are recorded in a project. So that lack of record keeping is really a true problem for the industry. And not only it does slow down the access to information during the project, but create risk after the fact. So we think that integrating AI in records keeping to help people collect and file the information in the right project activities is definitely going to be a game changer. And that's what we are working on.
Yeah, so in other words, it takes away the burden of manually trying to keep records and classify and yeah, yeah, that's very
Exactly.
good. Yeah, yeah. Um, so um, if you think about BIM, BIM environments, uh, what is your vision of connecting traditional email and BIM?
So that's another interesting question because I came from the BIM world initially, and then I evolved into the project, but broader project information management challenge throughout the years in my career, right? But I would say that the biggest challenge I think with BIM is not the benefit it generates; it's getting everybody on board and to adopt it. And we know that BIM is easy for people that are tech savvy, but not so much for the veterans in your organization that are doing project management or typical project activities. So how do you get it in the hands of those people? And that's a very, very hard question to answer, right? So I think the problem often is that they either don't have access to the technology because they don't have expensive software, BIM software licenses, or the software themselves, the design of those solutions are too complex. So they open it, they close it, and that's all they that's all they would ever do with BIM, right? So what if you could put BIM in the context of the traditional project activities and give them a one-click access to the information? So we've been exploring how, for instance, like communication relate to BIM, right? Communications often have locations, they have assets mentioned in there, and all of those things relate to the 3D representation of the project, right? So we've created links between emails and BIM so that when you're inside the BIM environment, you could see the emails, right? So you could see the emails around the model. So we've created that link, and then now we're pushing it further by creating automated relationships, right? So when someone's looking at an email, he'll be able to go into the 3D environment in just one click, right? Without the need to navigate. That is one of the innovations that we're bringing by by covering those project activities, right? So again, we're looking at the intersections of project management, information management, and then BIM. So you'll ask, what is information management? Well, I'll touch on it, right? It's Microsoft stack, right? Everybody's using Microsoft tools, and it's information. It often lacks the project context. People are using Microsoft products to create specifications and create Excel spreadsheets for tracking items and things like that. So all that information again is often folder based and not part of the project record where workflows happen around RFIs and submittals. And how do you keep a record of the information when anybody can delete anything on a file server, right? So that is a problem that was there 20 years ago, and it's still there, and it's getting worse because there are even more tools in people's tech stack today, right? So if I ask the question to someone, how many tools do you have in your tech stack 10 years ago, and how many do you have now? It's often 50% more, right? So that problem is getting is getting worse, and I think this is basically offsetting the benefits of technology adoption in this space.
Yeah, that's a huge question and problem. I just read about a survey that they asked about what are the biggest obstacles in implementing new technology, and one of the first one was not enough time to implement. So maybe that's how have you tackled that problem?
Yeah.
How
So
to
I
make
think
it easier?
yeah, I think it all goes back to the basic, which is good user experience, right? I mean, if you look at how successful Apple have been at putting the user experience at the center of what they built, right? So I think in a way, we've always put a lot of energy on making user experience great and putting the customer at the center of what we build. So, trying to remove like the steps in the workflows and the number of clicks and making things more obvious, right? So I think we've really tried to dumb everything down because there's so much complexity in our industry that it does actually create a barrier for new staff, right? People coming out of school and people getting interested in this space because it's complex, right? So we're really trying to remove the barriers from that perspective.
Mm, mm. By the way, I'd noticed that we use email, but younger generations might not even use email anymore. Do you see that as a problem or an opportunity?
I think I see it as as a opportunity. It's gonna also be a problem, right? It's just start with the problem, right? So now I think we're talking about data sprawl here because I've talked about how communications and decisions are often made in email still, right? But it's transitioning over with Microsoft Teams, and we see it, right? So we've got statistics that prove it with our Microsoft Teams connector, right? So now what's happening is that when people adopt new communication channels like that, you've got new things that never happened before. It's talking about the thumbs up in court, right? What
Mm.
that was later recognized as a yes, as a proof of the person who received it, right? So so those things wouldn't have happened like 10 years ago because we didn't really have a way to react to communications, right? So how is the new communication methods like transforming the way that records are documented, right? So I think this is a very interesting question, and we see it as an opportunity at Newforma because this is the space we're in keeping records, right? Making sure we've got complete project archives and like Teams is just one of those, right? People use their cell phone on the job site to send text to one another. How do you capture that, right? Are there decisions made in there that could be later used as evidences in lawsuits, right? So again, I think records keeping is a science. Lots of organizations like they recognize that because they've got information managers, they've got CIOs, they've got data governance people that put strategies for retention, for managing the information. So for us, it's the core of what we do, right? We make sure there's complete audit trail about all the information that's being shared on the project, no matter what tool people use.
Mm. By the way, in Finland, the most popular way to communicate on a construction site nowadays is WhatsApp.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because I know that in the USA, for example, it's not at all as popular as it is in Europe.
Yeah, no, I think WhatsApp. I think I look at this in South America. It's very popular too, right? And I think they've got a very interesting communication platform. And often when you're on the job site, you're offline, and when you get back to the network, then message gets sent out, and it's very reliable, right? So that's definitely another platform that we could be capturing information from. And I bet that, if I look at all the communication tools in the world, they would probably be a lot more than that. So that's a widespread issue. That's what it says.
Yeah, yeah. When we talk about AI, the question always comes up is how secure is it? How, especially if you let it do some decisions for you or some operations for you. Um, how do you make sure that the use of AI is safe and ethical with new forma?
Yeah. So first of all, like we took an approach because we didn't really want to create unnecessary risk for our customers, and not everybody like we are aware that not everybody feel comfortable to adopt AI at the same pace, right? So we started by making all our experiences kind of opt in or opt out, right? So people have the choice to deploy our AI or not. So again, we've put security as a core fundamental aspect of what we do, right? So we're ISO 27001 certified, we're SOC 2 compliant, certified, and then we are also heading for FedRAMP currently for Department of Defense projects in the US, right? So beyond that, I think what firms should be looking into, right, when they enter into a partnership with a software vendor that integrate AI is, first of all, can I have the pace to roll it out at my own pace, right? Can I have the opportunity to do that, right? And then second, like looking at terms and conditions, right? Because often, it says like something blurry, like we reserve the right to use AI on your data or something. So there's some key questions you should ask in there, right? So the first question is, so are you training AI on my data, right? Because this is potentially a risk for data leak, right? Knowledge leak somehow, right? Because when AI is using your data to get trained, well, guess what? Like that knowledge that it's capturing could be used for providing insights to another of your competitors, right? So you should be worried about that. So make sure that your vendor have a way to encapsulate that information and that knowledge in your organization. Second, are they using it just for the purpose of testing, right? Which again would be less of a concern than if they use it for training. And I guess like the biggest concern I have is, are they using it because they're selling it, right? So who's the owner of the information? We've seen some some cases like that over the years, right? Where vendors were selling information to generate revenues. So you're using a free software. Nothing is free, right? So you're probably, if they're not saying it to you, then you're the product, right? So your data is getting sold to someone else. So you should be asking serious question about ownership, right? So who's the owner of the information? We ensure that our customers are the owner of their information, right? So we don't sell the information to others, and we don't train our AI on information that belongs to them to provide insight to others, right? So I think a lot of organizations are trying to leverage AI these days because this is a strategic advantage that they're going to use, because they're sitting on a gold mine of information that is basically their know-how, right? It's how they work. So if you can turn that into a strategic asset, why would you want one of your competitors to have access to that, right?
Yeah, yeah. As you said, for example, on social media, we are the product. So
Yeah,
so
exactly.
yeah, yeah. So that's, yeah, that same applies in other software as well. In our previous conversation before we did this interview, you mentioned that you called Newforma the Google of construction project data. That's a
Yeah.
good way to put it. What does it mean in practice?
Yeah. So over the last 20 years, we've built a unique and unmatched search engine, right? So the problem with searching for information, and I guess like it's a problem anybody can relate to, right? Because we're overwhelmed with information these days, right? So there's information living in multiple silos, your inbox, a Microsoft Teams, documents on a SharePoint. Now people are leveraging Autodesk products for hosting models, right? So Autodesk Construction Cloud, and then you've got a contractor in Procore or A Site or something like that, right? So um, there's a multitude of like different platforms used on a project, and it's often hard to remember like, where did I put the information, right? Or maybe like you've delivered dozens of projects, of data center projects, and then now you're bidding on a new one, and he said, I ran into those issues in a past project, right? But I can't remember which one of those, right? So how often did you ask yourself this question, right? So that's the problem that we're solving. So your pharma for 20 years have been evolving search and indexing technology to search not only so if I just take emails, right, as a starting point, we search through the body of the emails, but we also search through the attachment, including file formats, native file formats of the industry. So we search through DXF, CAD files like DWG, DGM, Excel file, Word file, PowerPoint. So we search through dozens of file extensions like that. So we index that content as well. So when you search in our tool, you actually find more results than when you search in Outlook. And then not only we do that, but we do that with the information flowing through our system, but we're also searching into other systems, including file servers. So for people who are still using, like local file servers to deliver projects, and they have information on a physical server in a closet, right? Well, guess what? We also connect with that and we search through it, right? So we help organization find information. And again, finding information seems easy when you see it fast, but it's not. It's a multitude of different software, and so we do that, right? So we help unlock the access to the information for the current project people are working on, but also across project, which could help you win more projects, right? Well, you're bidding on a project and trying to find, put contingencies in your proposal, and you're trying to figure out what sort of issues did I run into, or maybe you're trying to train new staff, and then it's the first time they hear about a sedum roof, right? What is a sedum roof? So they have to search into projects. So that with our solution, they can search into past project as well, right? So it's kind of a cross project search. So when I say with Google search of construction project, this is what we provide, right? Extensive, deep search. We search, we extend search beyond our system into the system we connect with. So we're creating that ecosystem of information that people can access and tap into in a second.
Mm. Well, as you're providing this kind of service, I would imagine that companies are interested in long-term relationships with a provider like you. How loyal are your customers?
So I think the average tenure of our customers is beyond 5 years. So we have a lot of the large blue chip customers. You think of the top architecture, top engineering, and top GCs, right? So I think we've got over 212 of the top 400 architecture firm in the world. So that's I think most of our customers, because of where we came from with our solutions, are architects and engineers, and now we're seeing a lot of general contractors adopting our SaaS offering. So I think the problem is, general contractors, I think 15 years ago, were fairly like technology laggards. It's no longer the case. They're the ones driving it. So now general contractors are adopting solution like ours that helps them get a hold of the information, flowing through their project activities, and they recognize that records keeping is essential in risk mitigation.
Mm, mm. It would be nice to have a project without litigation,
Yeah,
as some contractor told me.
yeah.
Well, well, that's another question why that happens. Well, if you look ahead, where do you see the biggest changes coming in construction information management, especially with AI and cloud technologies?
Yes. So I think, we've seen a lot of examples of AI powered search, right? But it's not just about searching for information. When technology helps you collect information, because I guess like the biggest problem people are gonna have deploying AI in their organization is connecting their data silos, right? And so it's also very important to find tools that will help you federate information from multiple sources, because if you don't, then you're losing context, right? And um, good AI platforms are actually really good at creating good context to provide good answers, right? So a good AI is basically dependent on how good you are at connecting the information and making it amenable for that AI feature or functionality, right? So I think there's going to be a trend in trying to find tools that help collect that information, and that's exactly the space we're in.
Okay, there's one more question I'd like to ask you because there's always this discussion about data and AI, and some people say that you have to have really well structured data or information to make the best use of AI. How do you see that? Is it necessary to always have very structured data, or can you use something that is less organized, so to speak?
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. And, let's explore what structured means, right? Because we're building AI on emails right now, and it's probably the less structured information piece in the world of construction. So I guess, it used to be true when people talk about, machine learning and those sort of things where it required a lot more structure around data to be able to train, that sort of AI on data. But, with large language models these days, I think things are evolving. And then, because AI understand, natural language, right? So it is evolving fast. And I think, people are gonna have a lot of organizations are putting data lakes in place and they're dumping the information in there, and the structure is not consistent. It's somewhat structured data, right? But um, with the email development we have going on, I'm convinced that this is gonna be less of a concern moving forward, and AI is gonna start to really be able to unlock and uh, and then provide insights from unstructured data. So we've got proof of it. So again, things are evolving fast, and we're uh, we're continuing to keep up with the pace of that technology change.
Okay. Well, if there's one thing you hope our listeners take away from this conversation, what would it be?
So I would say that information management is definitely something your organization should be dedicating to, right? Whether it is because of knowledge management and labor shortage issues, whether it is about risk mitigation for your organization, right? So if your organization is running into a lot of lawsuits, right? There are some interesting construction dispute reports, available on the web from Arcadis and others like that who are publishing those reports, year over year. And the statistics in there are alarming because there are a lot more litigation on projects these days. And or if it's just to help you achieve operational excellence, right? So you think about ISO 9001 or ISO 19650, right? So all of those things relate to a core problem, which is information management. How is the information collected, controlled, and how it is recorded in a project? So I would say, if you're interested about any of those things, Newforma is definitely a solution that will help you achieve those. So please reach out, and we're happy to have a chat.
So, what is the URL you have to
So it's
visit?
newforma.com. So if you go on newforma.com, you'll have a way to book a conversation with us, and then talk about the challenges of the industry and how we can help you be competitive in the space.
Carl, this has been most interesting. I thank you very much for this opportunity to discuss these issues with you.
It's a pleasure. Until next time.